EUC Podcast.
Vegas. It's Tuesday the 12th, 11 a.m. local time for anybody that's joining us. We have a round table here with all kinds of Citrix professionals and people in the industry. So we're really happy to have anybody that's joining us live as well as listening in on the podcast. Let's go ahead and go around the room. Steve?
Hey, Steve Greenberg here. I guess we'll do our Twitter handles at Steve Greenberg.
There you go. We're joined by Roy.
Special guest.
Roy Tokeshi, and my handle is R.A. Tokeshi.
There you go. Joe?
Joe Shonk, and handle is at Joe Shonk. SHONK.
Now we're about to break the pattern.
I was going to say, am I the only one that's
Yes.
creative here?
You are.
It's Chris Rogers, Citrix Jedi.
Mr. Citrix Jedi.
What happens if Citrix changes
Eduardo.
their name to something
I'm
else?
Eduardo Molina
That's
at Molicop, so
At
All right.
Molicop.
Yeah.
with K.
Yeah, we have a special guest with us, Eduardo as well as Roy. Haven't joined us before. And go ahead, Alex.
Alexander ERVIK Johnson. My Twitter handle is at ERVIK.
Antoine?
Hey guys, Anton van Pelt, and my Twitter handle is at Anton van Pelt, so my full name.
All right, and Mike.
Hello, Mike Nelson, and my Twitter handle is at NelMedia.
Well, I think we've broken a record this podcast. This is the most hosts we've ever had on a single podcast.
It's amazing
So-
what happens when you get everyone in the same location.
Yeah. And it's Las Vegas, that helps.
Yeah.
We have only 4 mics.
Yeah, I mean, with it being Las Vegas, I'm sure everybody's exhausted from late nights out, but we will do our best to keep it entertaining. And, you know, another thing for this podcast, this is going to be very Citrix-centric for this particular podcast. A lot of that has to do with the fact that we're at Summit. So we're going to be talking about things that were publicly announced by Citrix this week. We're going to be tiptoeing around the NDA line to make sure we're not sharing anything that's not been publicly disclosed. But I think so far it's been a really good weekend. I came in on Friday. The Partner Technical Expert Council was over the weekend. So it's just been a very long weekend and into the week. So
Sure is.
any thoughts?
Well, just a couple of thoughts. This is a more partner-focused event, so it will be a Citrix discussion, as you said, Dane, because that's what we're here doing, partner-focused. And we've invited Roy Tokeshi, our favorite Citrix engineer ever, to act as the NDA gatekeeper, so that we don't say anything we shouldn't. But the ultimate irony there is Roy's has the Lifetime Achievement Award for the most likely to be fired at any moment for what he said publicly. So he's our kind of guy.
So how does that make you feel, Roy?
Well, I guess the maid is running the asylum today. Luckily, LinkedIn is updated, so I guess
Yeah,
I'm okay.
and your resume's already blushed up.
Yeah, it's going to be a long week, I think. Sorry, honey, I might be looking.
Well, thanks for joining us. You're in good company with the inmates, so thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Any other thoughts? Anything interesting over the weekend, or things that you guys have taken away so far?
Well, the best thing I saw so far has to be Roy is manning the booth at Citrix, and you go in and you create a little Lego avatar of yourself, and
Yeah.
you go through all the stations. And on his free time, he created a Lego chess set. Full, how many pieces are in a chess set?
32.
He's got a lot of free time, and I thought that was really awesome. So check Twitter for that; it's out there.
That's like geek cred and a half right there.
Yeah. But I think as a partner, because I am a CTP a consultant integrator, but also have a Citrix partner company.
Yep.
I think that this was important on that side of the table to see where Citrix is going and what they have to say. And I tend to be a vocal person, good, bad, whatever.
No, what are you
is
talking
going
about,
on.
Steve?
And I have to say that I actually really liked what I heard. I think Citrix is doing a lot of things right after some sketchy patches. And good things, good things being said.
They keep tweeting the hashtag Citrix Partner Love, and there's a part of me that think that's awfully contrived. But then there's another part of me, after having seen the keynotes, after having talked personally to Kimberly, and Kimberly's an awesome person, I have to say, that, you know, I get this real sense from her that she means what she says. And I'm optimistic about that.
I agree.
I think there's been a lot of positive changes, and you know, I'm the first to say that we have opportunities to improve. So I agree. I think there's some good stuff that's about to happen.
I do want to put out there, though, that it's one thing to say, you know, Citrix love partners, but it's also another thing to actually go out and execute and love the partners,
I
right?
think Joe wants a hug, is how I interpret that.
Exactly. We need Citrix to come and hug
wasn't
us.
enough.
We want a big hug, you know, not the 2-second hug, but the 5-second hug.
Oh, you want the elongated hug.
Exactly.
The uncomfortable one? Yeah, like the butt.
The uncomfortably long one?
Almost, yeah, pretty much.
Well, we don't want to leave you guys out on the phone, but what do you think? Do you think Citrix needs to go around giving free hugs?
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like the message what was brought with the CloudPlatform cell, or the cell what is in progress now, that Citrix plan to focus on the core. So what they said, Xen App, Xen Desktop, Xen Mobile, ShareFile, NetScaler. So
We were just talking about hugs, Anton. You don't need to get all serious on us. Jeez. Talk about a buzz. Talk about hugs, and you just jump right into ShareFile and Xen Mobile.
He's afraid that the hugs are going to come from me. So in his defense, I can understand.
you asked me to be serious, then.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. I guess it's my own fault.
But that's a good segue into the key message we heard was focus, and it didn't sound like, to me, a typical corporate buzzword. I think we all know that Citrix has done a lot of acquisitions and a lot of product branches, and the message is clear. They're divesting of some product, even selling sub-companies, and focusing on the core, and it's a real thing. It's not just a blah, blah, blah. And it's very exciting because when you look at the announcements they're making in the core, you're seeing some really mind-blowing stuff. So the one that jumps out, I'm going ahead, but we'll just go freeform, is, you know, NetScaler running on containers. Like, that is freaking cool.
That is awesome.
And the NetScaler presentation just this morning, pretty much right before we came up here, was going through all the DevOps models, the revenue growth, you know, the existing customers that are operations and the new emerging things. And I don't know, that just signals to me like they get it now, and we're moving in the right direction. So you're talking about a leading ADC that's going to run fully native in a DevOps container environment. I don't know, that one just jumps out to me as like...
Yeah, if I could, I want to make a comment on that. You know, and I've stated my position on this before, but I'm not seeing the draw for this NetScaler container thing, okay? I understand the concept, I understand, and a comment was made today during the keynote that, you know, we're the only one doing this, okay? Well, there may be a reason why you're the only one doing it. F5 has attempted to do it in the past, and F5 backed away from it because they didn't find any value to it. So, you know, these are things that you have to look at. I understand what they're trying to accomplish. I'm just not exactly sure they're going about it the right way to going down the whole DevOps. Because they're talking about, I mean, the comment made in the keynote today was, oh, I'm an IT guy, I can give my developers a pre-configured NetScaler, and they can just plug it in and do their thing. In the real world, it's not that easy.
I agree. Well, but the second half was he said it goes the other way. The traditional operations guy can configure the NetScaler and give it to the developer.
But so you're telling me that you can get a typical operations guy to understand how to configure a NetScaler?
Well, that's a whole... Eduardo wants to first, so let him jump in here.
I see right now the cycle of developing to production with putting load balancer in front is a little bit difficult because now the developer has finished developing. Now you have to test, hey, how is my load balancer going to affect that application? So the way I saw it, I thought that we can use the container is we're going to give the pre-configured NetScaler to the developer. The developer is going to develop with it, not configure the NetScaler, but develop thinking with the load balancer already there. Therefore, when we move into QA or you know, testing, they already had that in mind. They don't have to tweak anything.
Yeah, that is a good point from the development cycle, because, you know, we've been dealing with for years with shitty code and people putting hard-coded pointers to IP addresses and all kinds of baloney in software that if they actually program from a perspective of, I know this service is going to be cloud enabled, it's going to be load balanced by default, they would actually do that as part of their normal QA process.
Well, and I agree with that. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not that I'm totally against it. It's just that I don't know if it's being approached the right way. And part of that reason is because I've worked in this container space. I've worked with DevOps, and I can tell you that changing the mindset and the programming path of a developer is not as easy as turning on and off a light bulb. So to have them to actually put a load balancer or even a complex NetScaler into their development environment, that's going to take some time.
Well, what do you suggest? I mean, as we start building out more microservices, you're going to have some kind of load balancing service out there. Whether F5 is doing it or not, there are other companies. I'm looking at a sheet here, one that says Nginx, there's DataWire, Buoyant, and there's some other ones that are filling that particular gap. So you have the smaller companies start to build up their own services, or does Citrix ignore that space, or do they go into that space and now they're able to cover more of just the traditional load balancing, but also your microservices load balancing?
And it might, to Joe's point, it might be a matter of timing as well. There's lots of times where companies do things at a certain time, and then the market's not ready for it. I think I don't deal with as many customers as you guys do, and I'm somewhat regionalized. But I think the real question is if you find people that are actually committing to containers from a development standpoint, then it's going to be easy to do that.
Yeah.
If you've got some guy that's still doing Fox Pro, then probably that's not going to be where they're not going to be. They're probably not even going to know what a Docker container is, let alone taking the steps to introduce the load balancers and everything else.
Because I know enough to be dangerous. I maybe see it naively. I just thought like developers are building an app and it's going to need to be load balanced. So while they're developing it, they talk to an operations guy and go, we need a load balancer. So he throws together a NetScaler, they break it, they screw it up, they call the ops guy, he fixes it. When it's all working, they go, okay, let's move these containers now out to where they're hosted. That's kind of how I see it. Simple, just, not like a big complicated thing, just whatever, load balancing or redirects or HTTP rewrites or something. I need them in the app stack. Okay, figure it out. Stick it in there and then go out.
Well, let me give you a use case that I am intimately familiar with. A customer has a substantially large NetScaler deployment. Lots of different NetScalers, lots of different environments, and they're using NetScaler honestly as it's intended to be used. It's not just access gateway for them. It is the whole stack, load balancing, application firewall, things like that. So they're pushing an awful lot of applications, and they're utilizing application firewall to secure those applications, do SQL injections, things like that. Right. The developers need access to the application firewall to properly develop their applications to not run afoul of the application firewall.
Good. That's a good example.
Or if nothing else, just to put it in learning mode and take care of that.
Yeah. See what you're finding, where the vulnerabilities are. Yeah. All right, Mike, we'll watch it. We'll let you be the resident skeptic because we got a lot of smiling faces here on this.
It also looks like if you're going cloud-based, are you sticking in NetScaler MPX to Amazon or Azure? Or, I mean, how are you going to do big-scale physical boxes into the cloud? You can't. You're going to throw a VPX up there for your traditional cloud-based load balancing, but now you're starting to look at containers, small little things that you could scale out to thousands and thousands of containers, right, based on demand, so they can shrink and grow dynamically as events come in.
The other thing is containers are a full set of things, so when you want to push an update, whatever changes you
make.
So
how do you scale VPX, right?
Yeah.
You have to manually implement another one. How do you make that dynamic?
Well, we can't even get NetScalers in Azure yet, so that's a little far ways off.
Say they're there. What's lacking there, Mike? Because there's
just one public IP. That's
one public IP. Okay.
You can have up to 2 NICs.
Okay.
But only one public IP.
Okay.
That's
Gotcha.
today.
Okay.
I guess also the adoption coming from a company before I went to the partner side that was a lot of developers it's also going to come down to pricing. You know, if it's going to be very expensive to deploy to my 500 developers,
It
then
better hadn't be. I mean, it better hadn't be much more than
Free.
I mean, yeah, free. Yeah, really. We want you to develop on this platform, and here's the way we're going to give you to do it. Now, granted, free is okay. You're going to have a 1 megabit, 10 megabit limit or something like that because it's going to be one or a small team of developers that's going to have access to this. But yeah, this should not have any cost whatsoever if you want to push adoption.
But that was what cut my price at all.
Yeah, they didn't.
Yeah, I don't know if they know. It's a whole different sort
It's
of
still
thing.
so early.
Well, you
guys
heard-
are so
yeah.
critical
Well, you
for
heard-
something that hasn't even
Yeah.
shipped
You
yet.
heard our recommendation here first. Free.
And that's what I brought up. That's what I brought up on the. Go ahead.
Hang on.
Oh, is there more?
Yeah, Mike.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
wants to-
I was just going to say that was another thing that I brought up on the previous call that we've had is that I don't know how Citrix is going to handle licensing on this thing. I'm sure they don't even know yet. But you know, think about it. If containers are meant to be deployed instantaneously, you know, deployed and destroyed on a frequent basis. So I'm not exactly sure the current NetScaler license philosophy won't work in that world. So
Something like pay for what you eat. Like
Well-
when they spin up, they register somehow, and then that becomes the
And
meter.
and that could be it. I just don't know if it's going to be like on a per container basis, or you buy, you know, oh, I can run 100 instances with 100 pack of licenses. I don't know how they're going to do it, but it'll be interesting to find that out.
Anton, speak up because that's an important point. Did we lose Anton?
He's tweeting.
All right, guys, I'm sorry.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. Go ahead and vocalize your tweet because I think that's important.
Yeah, well, Actor and Actor is, we talked about it already. You can only have one public IP as far as I know.
Yeah, I think we
So
had talked.
it's very difficult about, you can do content switching though, but for some NetScaler gateway or you need unified gateway, etc., to run all the services properly on the NetScaler box itself.
Yeah, and,
You want
and
to have the freedom to have multiple public IPs to separate different services.
and then there's the challenges with content switching and V servers, right? Which
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't want to spend the whole podcast talking about NetScaler as much as we all love networking. And oh my God, the SD-WAN demo was hilarious.
Badass, yeah.
That was absolutely
Why
hilarious.
don't you describe it for the listeners?
Was he really cutting that cable down?
He was
he
absolutely
really?
cutting that
He was
cable.
seriously
real.
okay.
It was real.
That was real. So basically what they walked through, and I'm hoping they do that demo again for Synergy because it was just so comical. It will probably not be able to replay all of Abhishek's intricacies and his hilarious comic sense, but the demo was awesome. They showed the SD-WAN technology, which is what Citrix is bringing out to the market to be able to do bonding and aggregation of multiple pipes and be able to do failover instantaneously without having to reconnect. And they were doing it was either Skype or some type of GoToMeeting type of session.
It was Skype.
With
Skype.
Scott Lane. And so Scott Lane was on the Skype session, and they were cutting cables and all this kind of stuff, basically failing all these internet connections. And the thing was staying up. But the funniest thing was he was cutting it with these big old cable cutters that looked like he was ready to take out some lock boxes or something. He was like, let's go to town, and he was cutting these Cat 5, Cat 6 cables.
Then he got out the hammer for the LTE hotspot.
So they said those demos were going to be available down in the Solutions Expo, but you can't bring a hammer, so you got to leave your hammer at home. So, anyways, so networking is obviously a big trend. I think we've been seeing that in the last week or so at Summit. Citrix is really putting a lot of emphasis on the networking side. So I think it's safe to say that Citrix is not divesting any interest whatsoever in networking.
Yep.
In fact, they're, if anything, doubling down and doing more emphasis on networking because it's kind of the fulcrum to enable all of these any applications, data, desktops.
One comment on that is Citrix was historically any device, any connection, any location. But now they've added to the story data as an equal partner, right? So they talk about apps. the network, and the data equally. And I think that's really good.
How long have we been saying that?
Yeah, I mean, well, everything they do, we've been saying.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of
they're catching up.
Right, but they're giving it the equal placement, and I think that's really powerful. That's where the value is, and that's the focus, right? Any now also means your data.
Absolutely.
And that's really cool.
So a question for you guys on the SD1, since you guys are way smarter than myself, but when are we going to see the SDN1 applied to the receiver, to the HDX receiver, to get away from things like NetMotion that are running on police cars, that aggregate a, IP in the different connections on the client side.
Right. So, I haven't heard anything about that because everything I've seen has been kind of point to point, or like a star.
I mean,
but the old orbital
cool
stuff, the orbital WAN scaler, WAN optimization has a client. So maybe that could somehow be.
So I tried that on a police car because of a client, and that didn't work. And they said it's an issue of the protocols and having Wi-Fi, and cell phone, Ethernet over radio.
And let's see. The example I have in my head, I have to be careful with. Let me think about how I'm going to put this. Military theater operations. There is a desire to put a lot of technology on your average soldier, and there is a further desire to aggregate that technology onto a mobile platform. Could be as easy as a Humvee, very honestly, where you then have this redundant connectivity. Where all of that battlefield data can then get reflected back to the battlefield commanders. I mean, we're kind of talking Ender's Game kind of stuff going on here, but which is really cool. But that's an interesting example for that kind of thing. The data. Not only are we is the data very important in this particular scenario, but how the data gets from point A to point B is equally as important, and redundancy is equally as important.
Right. Well, and that's where I think, and I don't know what it's called this week, I thought of it as CloudBridge, but he was calling it SD, but the multiple links. Citrix's approach is pretty unique. There's been other products out there, FatPipe and others that kind of pioneered this, but they're doing some really cool application layer logic with quality of service and using the links in really unique ways.
How much, I wonder, is the influence of not only the technology but the people of FrameHawk coming into all this? Because you're starting to see like not only the compression and the predictive technology that FrameHawk brought, but I'm kind of iterating and seeing some really smart people doing some really smart things, and I'm wondering where that brain power is coming from, and I'm thinking from that side.
That's definitely happening. Where I saw it for sure was the Raspberry Pi Thin Links Clinic, Thin Client on the expo floor. Me and Eduardo hung out with for quite a while, and all those guys are. FrameHawk's a big influence, all the compression protocols, the new thin wire, and the stuff they're doing is really, really cool. So we know it's getting people thinking and doing great stuff.
Yep, absolutely. So one of the things I do want to talk about, because it is public, it's not an NDA content or anything, so there is a lot of talk about re-adding value into the platform license edition. And there were some blog posts out there, and the announcement of some technology that Citrix is acquiring. Alex, if you're out there, why don't you, because it's all public and you've read the same blogs we have, why don't you share what's going on?
Yeah, let's just start with saying we told you so, right? I remember like 2-3 years ago, there was some guy from, I don't mention his name, he was British, I think. He came over to Norway and sat down in a meeting with us, and he basically told us that you need to sell 75% Zen Desktop, which everybody says in their sane mind would know that this is bullshit. So adding value to Platinum is the right way to go because, the last couple of years, in my mind, after they cut off EdgeSight, the value of the real value of the Platinum feature, at least for Zen app, was gone. So getting the ComTrade stuff into, and I know a couple of guys have mixed feelings about who uses this stuff and who does not use it. I know Mike went on about that earlier today. That shows Yeah, time will show if that will actually end up being used or not. But I mean,
Alex, why don't you talk about some of the specifics of things that they're doing around the platinum value?
Yeah, the upcoming 7.8 release, which incorporates the app disks. Is app disk for every version of it, or only platinum?
Yes, they have been public about that. App disk is going to be available in every edition of XenApp Desktop, so it's really dropping that barrier to entry to zero.
Okay.
But the app DNA integration for app disk is going to be a platinum only feature.
Yeah, and that is a good feature because if you're gonna upgrade any app disks in the next step, if you're going from Office blah blah to Office version next, for instance, you want to do app DNA to analyze the situation, what will and what will not happen if you do the upgrade. So that's a good platinum feature. The other platinum feature is the SCUM stuff from ComTrade, which was bought off in not the whole company, but the bits and pieces of the management packs that ComTrade makes.
Yeah, so let's
for their workspace suite.
Let's talk about that a little bit for any of the listeners that aren't familiar with ComTrade or haven't heard of their technology before. Anybody either on the call or in the room use the ComTrade management packs for SCUM before and want to talk a little bit about what that value prop is all about?
I've seen them and I've stayed at a Holiday Inn. If you want me to get a little high level. They're basically System Center integrated monitors that are extremely smart about the Citrix stack, so they know all the components and subcomponents, and they can monitor the whole environment and tell you what's happening.
But not GPUs.
Well,
there's always limitations.
No, there's big limitations. Why? So I have customers that use ComTrade and very happy about it, but again, there's huge gaps in it.
Well, that's a consulting opportunity for TPOP.
It is, but it's also people that got to be aware of.
No, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, so just to announce, Thomas Poppelgaard has joined the room. Thank you for joining us. And what does he bring up? The very first comment out of his mouth. But there's no GPUs.
Right.
It's like just to be expected.
Right.
So
which is important, but it's also we don't want to skew it because ComTrade has great value. It's really good at monitoring Citrix, and it has logic, and it knows the components. So it tells you, storefront's having a problem.
And I would say that this is a really smart move for Citrix because it does not completely eliminate the need for an enterprise or a higher level monitoring solution if a customer has budget. But for the customers that don't have budget, that already bought Platinum, that aren't getting any value out of Director the way that it is right now, that are missing the functionality that used to be in Edge Site, as much as we hated that product. This is something that kind of bridged the gap between customers that have it as part of the license and the customers that want to pay for a more advanced monitoring solution like an EG Innovations or a Goliath or a you name it XYZ product that's out there, SysTrack and others, right?
What about for the smaller guy that doesn't have that?
That doesn't have SCUM or that doesn't have Platinum?
They might be using Zen Server.
Yep.
Right, or some other hypervisor. They don't have a huge budget where they can go buy EG Innovations or some other monitoring tool, and they don't have necessarily the budget to go buy System Center.
And they probably wouldn't have the budget to buy Platinum at that point.
I think it would be cheaper for them buying actual EG Innovation with a standard license from Citrix.
In that I would actually agree with. So there's a challenge right now with the smaller guys, right? This conversation about the SMB or the mid-market that doesn't have all this budget to buy all these things. And the value of piecemealing the solutions together and getting best-of-breed components from a couple different vendors, as much as we all love Citrix, and we all want to see every customer buy Platinum and then some, sometimes it just makes sense to buy VDI Edition and go get the best-of-breed components from the other vendors.
I disagree to some extent. A lot of our customers are Platinum, even the smaller ones. Obviously, the value of Platinum's gone diminished over the years, but and one of the big things that was a selling point was Edge Site. Right? That was a big selling point with Platinum for the smaller market because now they can monitor the entire Citrix environment without having to go buy a third-party product or go integrate with System Center. So they had that complete package from Citrix. They're trying to keep the number of vendors that they have to support down to a minimum.
I think
So,
it's not it's not a problem for customers who already have Platinum. If they see there is added value in the new Platinum model, they will continue their Platinum licenses. On the other hand, customers who need to buy new licenses, they certainly do check what's in and what's not in, and what it will cost if they buy separate products together and compare them together or bring them together.
So one other thing I want to add with that platinum value, right, is PBS, right? So even with a lot of our smaller customers, we do a lot of PBS implementation, which is a platinum feature, correct? So you know, it's not that difficult to sell platinum to a smaller, more budget-minded
I think it is.
organization.
Maybe in the US, in Europe, it's different.
Is it? Can you explain?
It's been pretty hard for companies to buy Platinum. Because
Eduardo's busting a gut over here. He has an opinion.
Come on. The funny thing is also when
It could be we just have a really good sales team.
But also real world is most Platinum customers I go out to, they don't use all the features.
Oh, never.
Never.
Oh, no.
Which is insane, right? So
Right.
why are we not educated?
Well,
As a
but
partner
also
to do this.
the features kept changing. At one point, there was a lot of really good stuff, and then
was.
there wasn't.
Yeah.
So some of what this is about is good stuff, like password self-service reset. That's good.
Password manager.
But what about
you said?
FDNA? How many actually using FDNA as a Platinum customer?
It's a very good point, Tom.
Yeah,
I
I
think-
damn few,
yeah,
but
not that much.
they all should be.
Yes.
But PBS, I mean, if you wanted to
PBS
get
is more
an app,
essential.
I mean,
Yeah.
what do you do?
Yeah, if
now?
you're buying XenApp still, that's definitely a good point.
Yeah.
And that's a different conversation altogether. How many customers are still buying XenApp? How many of them are buying Zen Desktop Enterprise or above? So that, I mean, there's all kinds of dynamics that kind of go into that. Eduardo, did you have something to add?
I think Platinum, it's there, but I think most of the customers are happy with just Enterprise.
And I think that's kind of back to the point that started this conversation. Citrix is finally reinvigorating Platinum and bringing more value back to Platinum.
Right.
Because for the last 3 years, we've been going down the feature matrix and going, you need this feature, this feature, this feature. Oh, I'm sorry, there's only 3 features that are really critical to you.
Are NetScaler Universal licenses still part of Platinum?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So there you go. For the longest time, I've said that's worth it right there.
Yeah, and CloudBridge is also a part of the Platinum packaging.
So there you go. You enhance
CloudBridge
NetScaler
VPX, people actually use that? Oh my God.
Some actually do.
I have so many customers that I'll go to and they'll show me their licensing portal and they'll come down to that line item. They'll go, "What's that?"
And you're like, run away, run away. You need the fail open NICs. You need the fail open NICs. Anybody that's done CloudBridge with WCCP knows it's a pain in the ass.
It
is horrible.
So it is absolutely bad. But yeah, anyways.
Well, one just quick comment is it differs between Zen App and Zen Desktop, and that's going to become more unified now. But if you're on Zen App, you really kind of need Platinum to get PBS. If you're on Zen Desktop, what's that?
Enterprise.
Enterprise?
Zen Desktop is Enterprise.
Zen Desktop Enterprise and Zen App Platinum.
Only.
If you're on Zen App only, you need Platinum.
But if you're on
That's
Zen
correct.
Desktop, you can get away with Enterprise.
That's
That's what I'm saying.
Sorry, provision and services goes from Enterprise app.
Not in Zen.
For Zen Desktop licensing.
Zen Desktop only.
Now, when
That's-
you look
that's
at
hybrid
Zen
cloud
app
provision. You're looking
licensing
at the
for
wrong thing.
PBS, you
get
get
provision
VM hosted
services.
apps with PBS,
Correct.
but you don't get Zen app.
Who uses VM hosted apps, by the way?
I have some customers that have some pretty sticky legacy apps that use
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
You don't want to
Look at
deploy VDI, so for that few apps that can't come across the server host.
You don't want to give them a whole
Yeah.
client OS just to publish an old legacy app for 10 users. Right?
Yeah, so it's another tool, right? But mainly people want to use PBS. So
I
for
agree with you.
the customers to get PBS, they need to buy Zen App Platinum.
Correct.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But if you have Zen Desktop, you can do it with Enterprise.
With Enterprise,
That's
with
correct.
Zen app and Zen Desktop.
And that's why I think in the future, more of the purchases will just be Zen Desktop, and then they may just deploy Zen App.
So are you guys saying people are only doing PBS? Are we going into the PBS MCS?
No.
No.
We're saving our listeners from that one.
Oh,
So I guess the question is, of everything brand new or coming back with Platinum value, what is actually going to touch the customer?
So one thing I'm missing is actually the user.
The user
layer.
part, sir.
Yes, I'm really missing that.
Because there's only one feature for the user, which is probably reset.
So why didn't I buy Unidisk?
Oh, you're talking
Or
about
Liquid
layer.
Labs.
Yes.
Well, okay, but he did make a comment when he announced that Platinum would include, I guess Platinum would include the DNA, and he talked about the layering. He said that choose the layering you want to use
Yeah.
from the industry, and this one's here in case you.
Yeah, and then run app DNA.
As
on
long
top
as
of
it's
it.
not app volumes. That's
Right.
specifically what he said. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
He didn't say
but
that.
but the point is, they were signaling that that's a partner ecosystem. Layering is, Citrix isn't trying to be the layering solution,
Yes.
right?
Well, they have a solution.
App disk.
I don't know. I would argue with that. They
Don't get me
they
started.
are trying. You say they're not trying. I would argue they are trying.
But failing.
But the jury's out. We don't
Right.
actually have the solution in our hands yet. How good is it?
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. And there's been some hubbub on Twitters about whether Citrix should just dump app disk before they invest too much and just go buy Unidesk. So
I remember when
jury's out on that one.
when it was first introduced to us at the CTP meeting. What was it, last May, I think?
Yep.
I don't believe I've ever heard the room erupt quite so much as just. I don't even remember who was presenting, but I felt bad for the person because we just dogpiled
They were
on
about
him.
3 sentences in, and Helge said the words that I can't do a good German accent. This is ridiculous. This is dead. It will never work.
This is doomed to fail from the beginning.
Okay, so if you could do bets, do you think Unidisk will get acquired? I'm not saying Citrix, but just imagine somebody.
Somebody.
This is Vegas. Come on, this is Vegas.
Isn't it like app
So-
V?
Oh, you're
Take it back,
gambling.
take it
You're a
back.
gambling man.
We're
He's a
gambling.
I mean,
gambling.
aren't you really wanting like app V in a sense? App V is almost the same thing without the isolation layer.
Yes and no. Some of these newer companies are doing really cool stuff, and Unidesk is really smart, and they have some really cool stuff. So I'm in Vegas. I'm a betting man. I'm with Thomas. I say yes.
This year?
Someone should snap them up.
Yeah.
They'd be stupid not
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
Especially with the latest version.
He's actually writing the check right now. He's going to win that.
Ron Oglesby will be our newest.
Yeah.
Well, when you have a checkbook as big as Steve's, I guess he can cash a check for you. And thanks for dinner the other night. We really appreciate it, Steve.
It doesn't mean he's got a lot of money. He just has a really large check.
Like those charity donations they do are really fun.
He's got a whole
Extra-sized
book of
checks.
them.
awesome.
Actually, reading the chat here, I like Andrew's comment. Maybe it's time for distinct Citrix editions to go by the wayside. Should Citrix adopt a more cloud service-friendly model where you can choose the features you want to use and buy licenses for them as they are used? Kudos, Andrew.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yay! Pretty good idea.
Okay, I'm going to throw the flag here. So, which is it? Is it the Citrix should be less complex thing that we're going theme where we go, or are we going with the hey, let's make the licensing model even more complex?
You know, Roy, you're a terrible moderator. Can you just knock it off? You're actually trying to keep us honest with our nitpicking, and this is just not working out.
So we have one customer that's running ZenApp with PVS. No, they're actually ZenApp Enterprise, so they don't necessarily qualify for the Platinum for PVS, but they get the PVS under Zen Server. So the old Zen Server licensing,
Enterprise
so they get the
package has
entitlement
PVS.
for using PVS and ZenApp using the Zen Server. Now they want to go ESX. So what do they have to do? Do they
This
just
is Roy's
throw away
customer
the?
too, so we'll talk about that when we get home.
I mean, it's complex when you want to change your environment, move from one hypervisor to another. They have to like upgrade all of the.
Well, generally
licenses?
speaking, if the partner is not as good as you guys, then they can't do a lot of these big flippy, switchy kind of things. They just kind of let it ride. So, I guess there's a problem.
Did you just say
guys.
flippy, switchy kind of things?
Yeah, it's a technical
That's a technical
Yeah,
term.
it's like, what does Zen Server have to do with PVS? Right? Why was there a licensing model around that?
Because if you're implementing virtual machines, then you know if you're going to commit to a hypervisor, and what features
And then what
Come
happens in
on,
that?
Carol's like, we don't get enough features with.
All right, so Roy,
So what happens when
Roy, talk
please
about
stop
putting
the
so many
hypervisors
features.
for the-
So there's been a lot of discussion about use cases, right? It's all about use cases. It's about driving opportunity and use cases. Give me a use case where customers would use PVS for non-EUC related workloads. Not XenApp, not Zen Desktop, other workloads.
Web servers?
Perfect.
Yep.
Double click into that. Tell us a little bit about that. What have you seen out there in the wild?
All right, so there's a couple of, the two major use cases that I've seen is if you want to scale a server workload where you can abstract the data from from its application layer. So a web server being a perfect model, you spin up the web server, you point that to the that data to wherever. You're not duplicating the data inside the web server itself.
Yep.
Or if you have application tier or mid-tier applications where those point to the database and that sits in the middle somewhere, that's a great use case. The other place where provisioning server comes into play is time of use of physical resources. So I was with a customer of mine they did a lot of in-house development work for their applications. So one of their initiatives was to increase the amount of investment they did in R&D, do better testing before they rolled out to their internal users. And they were trying to make a choice between, do we improve our performance by adding physical resources to production, or do we add these physical resources to R&D and dev or test dev, et cetera. So provisioning server allows you to, you start, they had the bulk of their users started at 6 a.m. and were off by noon to 3. They were able to work shift their test dev later in the day
and use the same hardware.
And they were just spinning it down and spinning it up. So there's a lot of creative ways that you can use provisioning services, but that aren't necessarily the traditional let's spin up some desktops today kind of model. But it's
as the resident Moonshot fanboy in the audience, I would say, wouldn't that be a perfect use case to use a cartridge-based architecture like Moonshot for these type of workloads?
Mm-hmm. As an Atari 2600 fan, I'm a big fan of cartridges, so I could go with that. But sometimes
cartridges are good. Right?
Yeah.
Well, hey, the other interesting note that came up was the word Zen server, and it was mentioned more times in this podcast than at the 2 days of Summit.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Do we have any explanation for the lack of the X word?
Other than I got a big problem with it.
Other than the fact that David Cottingham's kind of edgy about it.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
But I'm like, well, what is happening? They put it on the blog post and also the love Zen server, but why not choose to show the love?
I think they are pushing. I think they're really pushing that any thing. And you saw one of the slides up there where one of the any's was any hypervisor, and Zen was in there with everything else.
But you also know that just took some of the cloud products that communicated with Zen server and sold to another company. Is this the first step of getting Zen server out?
Zen server is open source. Zen server is not going.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just saying.
Let's let the remote folks share their opinions on this. Go ahead.
Go for it.
I think that the selling of the OpenStack and all that stuff actually makes sense, because I don't know how much. Maybe Roy can elaborate on that, but I've not really seen that many customers going down that road.
Like I said, I have some cloud providers actually who are using all the full integration, and they've made some pretty amazing stuff.
Okay.
To be honest, I'm really sad with it, because I'm about to actually help some other customers doing the same thing what they've done.
Well, but again, it's just being spin off. CloudStack will still be CloudStack. It'll still
but they're
work
not going to pay extra money just for that.
Well, they are today.
Well, they are today. They charge for it.
Yeah.
Unless you got it free somehow.
And then the announcement was that it'll still be supported and all that by the new company, whatever.
The same price is cheaper.
We don't know.
That's up to the new company.
Platform entitlement has never been in XenApp, Zen Desktop, or anything related.
No.
So customers that run Cloud Platform that use that for their automation system, even if they're running EUC workloads on it, are still paying for the Cloud Platform licenses to do that. So with Citrix kind of spinning that off into a separate company, they're still going to be paying for that. They're just not going to have a single vendor to choke, right?
So what I hope I will see eventually will be Workspace Cloud on-prem.
Just for the control plane?
Just for that.
It's called XenApp and Zen Desktop.
No.
Oh, Studio.
Our products. They just been off. Now, what Citrix are doing outside in the cloud now, imagine doing that on-prem. So that companies that want to do that, build their own clouds on the stuff with automated.
So you mean like
similar to Nessus 365?
Yeah.
But you're talking about building an internal infrastructure with a
but
cloud
then-
platform, like an OpenStack, cloud platform.
Right, but then who maintains that infrastructure? Because if you take the power that is the workspace cloud and have the fact that Citrix maintains it and updates all the brokers and everything like that, you never have to worry about maintaining that infrastructure.
So there are some people where they don't, like, they want to be in control.
Right, in which case you don't have a cloud server. Again,
No, but
in my opinion,
they want to
pick
be the
the
cloud
other.
provider. They
Okay.
want to be the
Right. I think they're just a little bit early. I think the problem is that they're, if you look at OpenStack or CloudStack and Cloud Platform, what you have is you have the small number of cloud providers that really need it, and they're putting all the effort into customizing it.
Right.
And there's no solution that's like next. You're gonna have to you have to shave off the edges of the square to fit in your almost circular hole.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of integration and work like that. I definitely see it. It makes sense that there'll be a divergence of eventually, sometime in the future, that there'll be, completely cloud-based customers, and there'll be the completely brought back in-house customers because they have the complexity and the requirements to have that control inside. But I think that it's going to take some time before it's the really large customers who are really good at doing virtualization, and it's not just a handful of virtualization servers that they, they almost still handle it like they did with physical pizza boxes. They're just spinning up VMs. It's a highly manual process. There's going to be that point where they really need to act like an internal cloud provider, that they have such a need for that automation. I think that I think the timing might just
It just would have been great to see Workspace Cloud for on-prem to then, with the other products discontinued now, getting sold off, that they had another solution for the existing customers that have
Thomas, just a quick question. Just circling back to the start of this conversation. What product are the customers specifically using? Are they using a cloud platform, or are they using the old Vortex stuff, or what the company called it, which today is called CloudPortal Business Manager?
Good point. Yeah.
Because I've tried to install both of them, and it's like Roy says, it's too complex. So maybe Citrix is doing the right thing with this, doing the same they did with SendServer, taking it out.
Roy's turning red.
Yeah, you threw Roy under the bus.
Someone call 911. I can throw him under the bus.
He's in trouble. He's polishing up his resume right now. So just bring clarity for any of the listeners that aren't really following along with what we're saying. There was a press release yesterday. Citrix has decided to sell off the Cloud Platform and CloudPortal products to a company called Accelerite. So just to get everybody on the same page, make sure everybody's aware of what we're talking about. That kind of brings it full circle there. Go ahead.
So, Dane, do you think that's going back to the message we have heard all week, is focus, and not we do it as well? Because VMware has been creating a very strong product around their orchestration stuff for quite some time.
Right.
So in this case, Citrix is actually doing the opposite. I'm just not going to do orchestration anymore.
Right. Well, I think that was Roy's point. Not that it was too complex, but that it's specialized for those environments that have the skills and need to do a highly orchestrated provisioning automation environment, and that's not your average Citrix customer, right? So you brought up Desktop 365. It's maybe on the low end, but that is an orchestration automation for building typical Citrix environments. So that's probably more the scale of what's needed.
And there are a lot of other third-party automation platforms that are very enterprise-ready that do very similar things. I mean,
insert buzzword here. Octoblue.
Well, yeah. So there's Octoblue, and that is automation of anything, right? Mm-hmm. You just have to invest the time to make it happen. And then there's more commercially available products like what Rez has been doing for years, right?
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, there's lots of solutions for customers that are looking to be highly automated and build their own private clouds. for delivery of XenApps and desktop or other Citrix workloads. I think from my perspective in our patch that we work in, the conversation around what is Citrix doing in the cloud and then everything fragmenting from that point has been very confusing for customers. They're like, should I be running XenApps and desktop on CloudPlatform? Should I be running it on Zen server managed by OpenStack? It was this workspace cloud thing with a public cloud connector where I need to be going. And so I think this is really just about narrowing the focus and kind of creating a little bit more unity around their messaging.
But if you go back to Tom, I still think let's just finish that and say, okay, so Zen server team is really innovating for the next generation of Zen server.
They are.
And so
looks pretty amazing.
I'm very disappointed. I haven't seen anything in the last 2 days.
Well, I think the lack of talking about it doesn't mean there's awesome things. You know, there's still awesome things going on, but where does it fit? Is the question.
But why not show out the message?
Well,
First of all, you know.
I think maybe they will wait until Synergy. Well,
I think it's too late for that. So right now they made a, David has made some really good material on how you can save money, going away from VMware, vSphere, and do pure Zen server. They've done a lot of analysis on it. Why not share with the partners?
Well, we're in Vegas. My bet is they're going to continue to innovate and develop, but they want to not emphasize it publicly and just make it available and make it awesome. But the message be a little bit more mainstream. And the one that's popped into mind, I have my picture of the Azure slide from Brad Anderson. Holy crap, the scale of Azure and what Microsoft is showing. That's why I think Zen server's there. I don't believe they're going to kill it.
But you know, Zen server got some pretty awesome numbers. Why don't we see the numbers with Zen server, what they're doing in the world?
But look at this, Azure, 1.5 million SQL databases. 90,000 new
Zen server has
customers.
some pretty awesome numbers.
500 million users in Azure AD. 1.5 trillion messages
Okay, so
per
how many
month.
GPUs is running on Zen server? How many clouds are running on?
Oh, it's about GPU now.
It's always about
GPU.
If we're going to go there, like, why don't we talk about some of the GPU stuff that Azure announced, right? I mean, so Microsoft is getting in. They're coming around. They're seeing, oh my God, Hyper-V is not going to survive if we don't do something about GPU. So I think, I don't want to say it's too late for Microsoft. I think they're getting there, and I think they're making their
Getting there, the pass-through, it's super expensive. You know, all the stuff, when I look at the tier of what they have, it is the most expensive CPU. It's the
You're
most
talking about an
expensive
Azure
storage.
instance?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's
Have you compared it
it's
to an
not needs,
AWS
it's
instance?
super needs.
Super needs. Have you compared it to an AWS instance? I'd be curious what that comparative difference is between a beefy Azure instance with a GPU and a beefy AWS.
It's not available in beta even yet, so I'm like, you
can't tell.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I think in that Microsoft Azure discussion that really stood out to me was they're building the features first in Azure and hardening them, battle hardening, and then they become a feature of Server 2016. So we've reached a critical mass where cloud is first and on-prem is second, at least in development.
And we'll just be clear and say that comes to Hyper-V, that doesn't necessarily mean that feature makes it anywhere near their System Center product line, which is lipstick on a pig if you're managing a private cloud environment.
I don't know. As far as Zen server competition,
don't talk bad about my ex-wife.
As far as Zen server competition goes, as far as workplaces and among the hypervisors, I don't necessarily think of it as a core for Zen app and Zen desktop. Right? When you think about Citrix focusing on the core, what do they need to focus on? They need to focus on Zen apps and desktop, PBS. What else is there?
That's about it.
NetScaler.
SD-WAN. That's your core.
I don't see Zen server. I think
experience HDX, right?
What?
HDX is bread and butter. That's
yeah,
bread and
now
butter.
you can do that on, the 5-letter other hypervisor.
Nope.
They can't be named.
Oh, you're talking about HDX 3D Pro. He's talking about protocol. You're talking about the GPU stuff. So, yeah. So what other things? So we talked about the cloud.
I do have one thing with GPUs.
Yeah, do it.
One thing with
the
GPUs.
browsers.
Absolutely. I want to hear about the browsers.
Okay, some like that new service, the browser. I'm like, I'm like, okay, performance. Okay, where's the GPUs? Come on.
Well, here, okay, so let's talk
Build
about
it on your own.
Because this is a big message.
There's an
we didn't hit on
on-premise
yet.
option for it, right? There's an on-prem, and that's what you build your
Right.
UPS on.
But let's talk about that, because that's a big theme here, and we didn't hit it. We're literally talking about more than 50% of the apps customers delivering now are web-based.
Yeah.
But it does not mean that everyone just needs a browser, because there's all kinds of plugins, security considerations, getting to GPU. I'm always got your back. Local cache data that gets saved.
We always got your back.
We'll get to GPU in a minute. But this is big because we do this, right? We've been in the field a long time, and our customers are doing 50% plus web apps. And guess what? We run them on XenApp, and we silo them because they have, or we AppV their plugins, their components, their JVMs. So I think that finally seeing the kinds of things we've been saying.
Customer I'm working on right now, 80% is published IE.
Right.
80%.
But you can't give them a generic browser. You have to give them a browser with all kinds of plugins and special.
Oh, we have 3 different images for different versions of Java.
Exactly. Right.
How cool would it be if Citrix
does
just
that mean?
acquired? There's a company called Browsium, right? Isn't that the one?
Yep. Browsium's one of them.
That would be
That's
awesome.
a good one.
Yep.
But
The other one was the Turbo guys. The
Turbo guys?
It used to be Spoon.
Yeah, it's now Turbo.
Yeah. And they're doing containers for things like plugins and modules and stuff for browsers, running different versions of browsers on the same operating system. All kinds of really cool stuff.
Those are great program levels, but just to finish the thought, what Citrix is offering is a browser hosting service where if it's a non-critical, non-internal resource, you throw it up just by giving the HTTP link.
But
hold on a second, let me explain it. So for the listener. And they can now just, have hosted browsers that are compatible with what they need. And there's an on-prem internal option, so if it's an intranet secure application, so you can just publish browsers. Now, if that's all you need, you can buy that at a lower cost. But if you're already a XenApp customer, you'll get that feature.
So here's another perfect use case for outsourcing, offshoring, things like that. You have these third-party vendors that come in and do whatever they do for a company that they need access to exactly that much, and I'm making a very tiny gesture, of the company data. Okay, radio. Anyway. So they need just a little tiny bit of access to a little tiny bit of company data. Now, how do you do that for them in a very secure manner?
Right. It may just be a browser. Now, many browsers today are deploying 3D rendering and rely on GPUs. So now here's your opening. I set you up.
Yeah, no, the browsers are using a lot of GPUs. I have been showing some analysis of the last work where years. And Citrix took the data capture, and now they're showing it for everybody. Also, Microsoft are doing it. I guess, yeah. So the browsers are using a lot of GPU because what does it mean when you then create stacks on Azure or AWS where it's non-GPU workload?
Yep.
Well, it would use more capacity, but it will also use more soft GPU, so we'll use the CPU for doing it. Actually, not getting the raw performance. That's the GPU is doing. But if but let's see. Hopefully, they come with a GPU workload together with browser when they do more. I think this is the learning curve of Citrix. Yeah. Right? They want to see with this stuff. Then when people that got some special requirements, then they can.
But the one mode you could do now, is you could do the on-prem XenApp server browser, and you could give a GPU on those servers.
Absolutely.
So you can do
and
it.
I think that's going to be a really big use case as we go into 2016, and customers are going, oh wow, Citrix actually has a solution for browsers. Because I think the thing about the browser app service, so it's stuff that they're doing in the cloud, and they've had the tech preview in the labs for Workspace Cloud for a while. So we're not talking about anything that's NDA or bordering on NDA. They've talked about it for a while. But the thing that they're doing there is they're bringing to the forefront of the customer's minds and the person seeking a solution out there that there's stuff that they can do with Citrix as it relates to browsers that only the advanced customers have typically known about this. Doing rendering inside of an HTML5 tab with a seamless kiosk mode type of frame around it, that's really good stuff.
Yeah.
Customers can do that on-prem today using existing XenApps and desktop licenses that they already have. They can plumb GPUs up to those kiosk mode browsers. They can do that. But what this is interesting is that it's opening up this new area within Citrix to go after net new customers, net new penetration targets to go talk to those people that need
Citrix is also all about emulation virtualization. So why don't they acquire Browsium? They got a badass product just for this.
But, the thing about Browsium, though,
so
it's not
a prediction. Anybody want to do a bet roll on that? So Joe's
saying it's because it's
not supported by Microsoft, because Microsoft will only support certain browsers on certain operating systems, right?
So Browsium is not supported by Microsoft?
Correct.
Yeah, that's what he's saying. But also, what's today, the 12th? In 4 days, Microsoft will not support anything older than IE 11.
Yeah, like 9.
Well, yeah, depending on your OS, but in terms of the current browser, 11.
So, but what I'm talking about browsing, it's a vendor, right, where they're virtualizing, emulating browsers, and making they're fixing all the browser
right, cool, right. They build compatibility mode on steroids. Those guys created earlier versions of IE and left Microsoft, and they put the compatibility, and you can assign.
The only problem is now Microsoft won't support that desktop that's running the browser.
So for our listeners, so first time I saw it was actually a platform in London where browsing was sponsored. I was like, who's this company? And I sat down and talked with them. I was like, wow, why have we not seen this about it? Why have we not, browsers are a huge problem. Who will acquire them?
One of my very, very large healthcare customers bought it because of their Win 7 rollout. They needed it. They needed backwards compatibility for the IE browser. So it's out there, and customers are evaluating and using it. How much fit it has into the core of the Citrix portfolio, I think that's yet to be determined. And we'll let the people that do the R&D and the research and figure out who to acquire, we'll let them make those decisions if it's a good fit. But I think right now, Citrix is really narrowing the focus, and that's great. They're spending some money smartly, like the ComTrade stuff, like we're talking about. Yeah. We'll see how many other things they need to add to that portfolio stack.
But what you can do today is you put containers on everyone's desktop. You buy everyone their own NetScaler as a reverse proxy to the web service that's running.
I can't believe it.
Yes, my job is
local GPU.
So that's the most idiotic thing I've ever heard, right?
Hey, you have not talked to me enough.
So let's be a buzz killer. If we take a step up on what we just saw with browser app service, for me the important part is that Citrix released the CWC Labs back in Synergy. Yep. This browsing thing was the first thing that went out, and within 6 months went from a concept to a product that they're releasing right now.
Yep.
So seeing that cycle that now is innovation coming faster, that for me is important.
I think that's important, and there's two things in that. One is this idea of they're going to focus, is they're, like Dane pointed out, we've done IE publishing for years, we've done IE silos, but now there's a way for the customer to go, wait, Citrix is a browser company. Oh, cool, I want to use that. Well, you always could have done it, but there's a better way to do it, and you can do it public.
And as much as we have problems with marketing in different areas, this is something where I think the marketing angle on this is actually going to open up a lot of new opportunities.
So in the second half, I just want to finish this, is that this rapid iteration that was stirred by Workspace Cloud is applying to other products, and it's freaking badass.
Exactly.
Because they're doing things quickly, they're releasing often. Now, the other thing they're doing right, got to give them kudos, because they're also the biggest critic, is with the long-term service release announcement, the problem that can cause is being addressed. If you don't want to be the bleeding edge, you don't want to be changing, you can lock in on some version of core product that you're happy with, and they will support it unchanged, unpatched for 5 years.
Yep.
So you
if they bring that to Citrix Workspace Cloud, then you got a solution.
You think you want them to freeze Workspace Cloud, you mean?
No.
That's not the point, though. You don't go there if you care about that.
That's Greenfield.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be awesome?
Workspace Cloud will always have the latest versions.
Right.
That's why people are afraid of Workspace Cloud as well.
So I want to, and it's amusing how many times our conversation in the last 13 minutes has come back to this very same point.
All about GPUs.
Because yeah, really. Because I want to give another shout out to Andrew Wood, who says, so when Citrix talks about going back to core, it's not just product, but market sectors. And it's amusing how much we've been swirling around that this entire conversation.
Yeah.
I will remind everyone, again, not getting too far into what was up on stage and things like that, but I will remind everyone about the focus on mid-market. And one of the things that stuck in my head is they said, hey, did you realize that I think it was 90% of banks are less than 500 users? Oh, that's mid-market. How about that? So yeah, it's, and I think, that Workspace Cloud and all the other things that we've been talking about fit so very nicely in there. And it's then very apparent where all of this is going, that they're targeting that mid-market.
Agreed. And just to play a switch on the old joke, so why do you sell to banks? Because that's where the money is?
Yeah. Which is ironic, because they're a little bit more on the cheap side when it comes to IT infrastructure. Not as bad as the law firms are, but...
Yeah.
I did want to add one more point to the browser as a service. right? And one of the market spaces that could really benefit from that are developers, right? Especially if you're developing web-based applications, you want to make sure your application runs great on IE10, IE11,
Yep.
Edge, Chrome, Safari. How does the developer, test against all these different browser types? Or even if they're using third-party plugins, how do they test different versions of that, right? So historically, they would have tons of machines under each one of their desks, just running different virtual machines, or some of them try to do within Athens and Desktop, but that licensing cost within Athens and Desktop for that one use case became somewhat cost prohibitive. Now the browser server can be a lot less as far as the cost goes, right? So if you already had Athens and Desktop, you could supplement.
Put the browser in a container.
Now you put the browser in the container, and now they can just connect to it a lot cheaper. The other use case that I kind of really see for that are these high secure environments that want to be able to allow the employees to get out to the internet, but they have to go through some kind of jump host in order to get to the internet. So this is a way for them to connect to a DMZ machine and now be able to browse out to the internet. So they don't necessarily have direct access to from their client to back-end web server.
And again, that's a great example of something we've done with customers for years, but it was geeky and not obvious. And now when Citrix markets that way and gives you a nice little interface and you can put it where you want, it's better. So I think it's good.
And it's also more cost-effective too to provide just basic internet access to a really highly secured zone.
Most of what people do at work, quote unquote at work, which is not actual work, involves a browser. People want to get to Gmail and their bank and stuff like that, even though that might not be a good idea. They still want to do it.
So here's the pop question: should the browser app stuff actually be a platinum feature or not?
No.
Did you see the browser app stuff?
Everything should be platinum. Everything should be platinum.
No.
One license for all.
Product, it's only standalone when you buy just that.
Yeah, and the other thing that they talked about, so we've been talking.
That was. Could it be a platinum feature, or should it be a platinum feature?
No.
I don't think so, because the functionality to do all the stuff that they're doing in the browser stuff is just optimization packs for the core. It's not like there's any specific code other than making it simple to deploy a kiosk in an HTML5 tab. I mean, that's kind of cool. We've been able to do it for years, but they're just kind of optimizing that whole workflow. And I think what they're doing with the pricing and packaging for Workspace Cloud, now that that's becoming available instead of just in the labs in a tech preview, is very cool as well. So what I would suspect is going to happen is that they're going to make that optimization pack available across the board. You just have to have some XenApp or XenDesktop license level. But the browser app service, where they're actually hosting the VDAs or they're hosting the RDSH workloads in their cloud, that's something that you're going to have to pay for because somebody has to pay for that compute.
Right.
Because they're actually taking on the workload part of it, not just brokering the connection to an existing VDA.
Right. So again, you have to think on-prem or hosted. Two different models.
Esther comes out with on-prem browser app has its own license and price tag. Don't think it is feature-bound, nor should it be. I would agree, nor should it be.
Yep, I would agree.
And then it's just like a bonus if you have XenApps and desktop licenses. So now maybe you do have a silo that you go to for your internet access, but you're also leveraging your published applications, desktops also on-prem.
Yeah, we just got to get a shout out to Joe Vaccaro. I guess he's listening. He's like, "Are you guys here? I want to crash your party." So I told him, "Room 308. Come on up."
Exactly. I think he overheard all this talk about Workspace Cloud. He's like, "Well, what?
Wait,
Who's talking about me?
Ears are burning.
Somebody's talking about me."
Well, in case he doesn't make it in time, Workspace Cloud is just it's awesome. It's a whole new generation of thinking, the fast iteration, the control plane in the cloud, and that concept is permeating. I think it came from ShareFile fundamentally, but now it's permeating other products, and it's really, really powerful. To me, it's the practical hybrid cloud. You put the stuff in the cloud that you don't want to deal with, like the management, but your workloads are where you want them. So shout out to Joe, and hopefully he makes it before we shut down.
Should we talk about ShareFile while he comes here?
Sure.
Yeah, go for it. Do you have anything?
Well, I think ShareFile for me, and I tweeted about it during the presentation. ShareFile is one of the 2 best products Citrix has right now. As a customer, I use it a lot. My CIO went from a POC of 50 users to a 500, and then HR got the workflow handle, and within 2 months we went from 50 to 2,000 licenses when I was a customer, just because how easy it is. Yeah. Seeing finally a demo of the DLP part working, it was fantastic, because I personally have never implemented the DLP part. So
Are you talking about the old components or the new stuff?
The new stuff.
The new DLP stuff.
That was impressive. That was very, very impressive. Hey, go ahead and explain that, because there might be some people who don't understand what the DLP integration is.
Yeah, and they actually announced that.
Well,
back
Jay's here. Why doesn't he come over and explain it? You want to come over?
Hey, Jay!
Tomlin, come join the podcast. Come on down. You're the next contestant on the podcast is live.
So everyone in the room here, we have Jay Tomlin, who is the man, the myth, the legend for all things ShareFile at Citrix. So thank you for joining us.
Coming off a successful and awesome demo.
He's just been overhearing us talk about every other product and going, when are they going to talk about ShareFile?
It wasn't because I saw him that I wanted.
We know you were a plant, Eduardo.
Total coincidence. This wasn't.
So yeah, I mean we've kind of been tiptoeing on like what's NDA, what's not NDA. I think you guys have done some announcements around the DLP stuff. So
yeah, the DLP stuff has been live for a while. We actually announced it at Synergy last year.
Yep.
And so that's in production. Everything that we showed today is in production and fully generally available. So no secrets. We're able to go blow the trumpet on that.
Very cool.
So in your demo, you sent some files to Anna.
Right.
And one of them was something you shouldn't have sent. It was filled with user social security numbers.
Right. And thanks for that, by the way, because I retrieved that and
Who didn't screenshot? Then we watched you hack into her Gmail account and look at her received mail, and the 2 other files, which were were able to be downloaded, but the one with the sensitive data wasn't.
That's right.
So you tell us how that happened?
So as part of the demo, those files started out on a network drive. So they're not even in ShareFile yet. And when I created the link using the iPad app, that kicked off a copy so that the storage zone controller, which is inside the customer's network, accessed the network drive on my behalf.
So it's native, okay.
So it impersonated my AD account, got the files, and then moved them into the ShareFile storage zone, where they could be scanned by the DLP system. So the storage zone is linked to a DLP system, and it can basically find out whether documents are sensitive or not, and characterize them as such in ShareFile.
That was very cool.
If you start with a document that's already in ShareFile, the chances are it would already have been scanned, and then the apps will even stop you from creating that link in the first place.
Okay.
So the sender would be shown the warning message saying, hey, you can't send that file, instead of actually sending a user a link that doesn't work. We try to avoid that whenever we can.
Yeah, good.
But it made for a pretty good demo.
It's a great demo.
Get the big error message saying you can't download that one.
Is that in essence a connector, or is it being moved over? Like when it's sitting in its native file share, and you want to link it, does it get moved somewhere?
It does, and we struggled with that for a while. So the source of truth is the document sitting on a network drive. And just like SharePoint or other on-prem enterprise systems, the security model there is don't allow anyone but the intended employee to touch that file. If I want to send you a file that's on my home drive, how do I get you access to my home drive? Even other Citrix employees don't have access to my home drive.
Right.
And so there's only 2 choices. One is you create a God-level service account that has access to everything, and when somebody comes in with a link to a file, it points to the file in its legacy location, and then the service account that has access to everything goes and gets the file on behalf, or on the ShareFile's behalf. Most of the customers that I talked to didn't want to go that way.
Yeah,
because now Citrix has access to every user's file and everything. So the model that we went with instead, which has a trade-off, is at the time when you share the file, it makes a copy in ShareFile.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So then it's only the files that explicitly get shared that we have access to. And we can take advantage of all the other bells and whistles in ShareFile, things like thumbnails and previews and web browser viewing, the DLP integrations, the view-only sharing, all that stuff works now because it's a first-class item in ShareFile.
That sounds better than a God account, but what if you edited that document?
That's the trade-off.
Yeah,
now you've got 2 copies, right? And if I make changes to the source location on the home drive, that's not going to be reflected in the link that I've shared with ShareFile.
So you would need, in essence, a new link. You'd have to relink it.
And synchronizing the two gets you right back to the same issues. Like, how do you synchronize all these files without handing ShareFile the keys to your enterprise?
And in reality, customers are doing that today, right? They've got their home drives, they upload it to ShareFile, they send people a link, and now you got 2 copies of that, right?
It's
so
just
you guys are just kind of quick stepping that? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, make it real easy for them.
It's still a lot better than putting it in Dropbox, though.
Yeah, I'd rather have them uploaded to a ShareFile that's on-prem security zone than
and got DLP and whatever else your policy.
And if the DLP says the file can't leave, then the file never left the customer's premises. Right? It went from the network drive. We made a copy on the storage zone controller, but it's still behind the firewall. DLP will catch it before it ever leaves.
So did you guys? I'm gonna pull something out of the chat here. Marius Senbu says it's going to be interesting to see the Microsoft EMS Office 365 versus this, since Microsoft is moving forward with EDP.
Right. So it's the same problem, right? Being able to protect data at the information level instead of at the based on who owns the file or where the file lives. So we're going after the same use case. Of course, with Microsoft, it's all one suite. We take a little bit more of an open approach that works with any. It works with Mobile. It can also work with other third-party EMM solutions. We work with any DLP provider. Watch this space because we'll be doing more next year on.
I think there's a word in there. That word is any.
Yeah, any.
How about that?
So with the DLP, do you guys work with cloud-based DLP as well as with on-prem DLP solutions?
With the integration as I showed it today, working with connectors and on-prem storage zones, today that only works with on-prem DLP systems. It uses a protocol called ICAP, which is what email gateways or proxy servers would use to work with DLP systems. We do have one cloud DLP vendor that's done an integration. For cloud DLP, the work needs to be done by the DLP vendor. Like I can't just go integrate with, or I can't build something in ShareFile that makes me show up in SkyHigh as a DLP option. SkyHigh or Netscope or some other cloud DLP solution would have to do the integration with ShareFile. And that is something that we want to do. If anybody from those companies are listening, we're already starting those conversations, and we'll get that done. But for now, the on-prem DLP integrations work only with on-prem storage zones.
Great, cool. All right. Just in terms of wrapping up, I put out there on the tweet chat if there's anything we haven't talked about, anything that we should recap.
Actually, there was one other one I noticed. There was a question from John Furrier. What are the current workload distributions between on-prem and off-prem? Talking about CWC. What about seamless workload movement across clouds? Not quite sure how we answer that one. I mean, I guess what in our experience is.
Yeah, in our experience. Well, we know what your answer is going to be, so.
On-prem all the way. Yeah, that's my answer.
So that's Chris Rogers, who works mostly in the federal and at federal affiliated type of space.
What's that?
Yeah, cloud. What?
Well, I know we're pressed for time. What if we get Joe and maybe Harsh or some other guys from that team on the next podcast and address that question and all those products? That would be a great discussion.
Yeah, and even just for the existing XenApp Zen desktop product line, Sridhar might have some insights into what they're seeing, because cloud has been enabled for XenApp Zen desktop for a while. So, customers have been able to do AWS. We have a couple that are doing AWS, and most of them are doing it for specific use cases, specific workloads, and then everything else still stays on premises. So that's kind of the scenario that we're seeing right now. And then seamless workload, I mean, moving XenApp and Zen desktop workloads back and forth between cloud is a lot less painful than traditional server VM workloads, which are typically where the challenges are.
And I'm pretty sure that Workspace Cloud has the ability to define workloads in different clouds and aggregates.
Resource locations.
I just don't know the details of moving and changing
resource locations. Yeah.
I do have a question for Jay, because one of the key things that I saw in Jesse's presentation was everything is getting hyper-converged except the data, right? The data is everywhere. So you guys said in the presentation that ShareFile can help us to consolidate that on a single pane glass. Does that mean that you're going to eventually have connectors to OneDrive, Dropbox?
Well, they already have some.
We already have connectors to OneDrive, Office 365, Dropbox, Box, Google, and we're going to add more. SharePoint. So our philosophy is that hyperconverged storage makes a ton of sense in a VDI type of workload where you care about IOPS and performance and all that. But storage is fragmented, and people end up with files all over the place, whether it's inside the firewall, outside the firewall. Storage is so cheap now, it's just everywhere. And we're not trying to convince customers to move all their data into ShareFile. We're trying to add value to files regardless of where they live.
Right. Exactly. All right. Any others before we wrap up? Guys on the phone? Anton, Alex, Mike?
I think we covered the basics. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm fine.
Steve, Andrew seconds your suggestion about getting the Workspace Cloud people on the next podcast and wants to know when that will be.
Oh, Dane, when will that be?
Well, it's the middle of January right now, so somewhere around the middle of February.
Okay.
And I think that would be a good topic to get some of the product dev and product managers on from Workspace Cloud, apps and desktops, Zen apps and desktop, and talk about some of the things that are coming even with this browser app stuff that we're talking about.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
That will fit the schedule.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, thanks for the cameo.
All right.
Hey, thanks for dropping in.
Thanks for dropping in, Jay.
Thanks, Jay. Cool.
So thanks a lot to anyone that was listening live, or if you've been listening to the podcast and the recording, thanks for joining. You can catch any of the iTunes or your favorite podcast listener of choice. Catch all of those links on EUCpodcast.com. We've recorded this live from Citrix Summit 2016, which is a partner-focused conference in Vegas. Today is January 12th. Thank you guys for joining. Look forward to having you all on the next podcast where you can join live on the tweet chat. So thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.
Enjoy Vegas, guys. See ya.
Enjoy.
All right.
Adios.